Comparing the performance of Kenyan and Nigerian president is very interesting. I must admit that they both have many things in common and many things too that set them apart, like heaven and earth. When presidents and politicians are being elected worldwide, they make a myriad of promises to their citizens and shocks their followers when they take the oath of office, as most of them implement policies that are against their followers, causing pain and anguish. Comparing the performance of Kenyan and Nigerian president is very interesting. I must admit that they both have many things in common and many things too that set them apart, like heaven and earth. One major difference is that President Tinubu is more blessed with age compared to President Ruto. He oversees over 200 million people, most of whom are young people, while President Ruto oversees only about 50 million people. Another is that President Tinubu has only visited 4 countries since he was sworn in, while President Ruto has made at least 34 foreign trips since he was sworn in as president. Based on these trips, Kenya's taxpayer has had to pay massively for the trips, and this is excluding domestic travels traversing counties launching projects, some of which may have been launched prior to him being sworn in as president. I would dislike saying that both made a lot of promises of renewed hope to their citizens, from eradication of hunger to elimination of poverty and joblessness among the youth. But their first utterances at their inauguration increased poverty and joblessness, especially among the so-called hustlers. However, to start with, both Ruto and Tinubu had very minimal chances of becoming presidents of the respective countries. President Ruto had campaigned for president for 5 continuous years, while Tinubu campaigned just for a short while, actually to be almost precise, less than half a year. Although President Ruto got elected in August 2022 and Tinubu's election was in February 2023, both came into power through contested elections, allegedly characterized by vote stealing. During their presidential campaign process, they both had little popularity among the respective citizens of their countries. Their elections were contested in Supreme Court, although Ruto was declared as the winner in Kenya's Supreme Court. The case of Tinubu is still ongoing in the Nigerian Supreme Court, although he has already been sworn in. Due to the contested elections, they both lack full legitimacy, trust, and support from all citizens of the respective countries. Some criticisms argue that if the West did not support their candidature, they would probably not have ascended to power because they were least qualified. Tinubu, for instance, was allegedly accused of many things, from lying about his age, name, education level to issues associated with drug business and massive corruption, while he was a governor of Lagos, among others. Ruto, on the other hand, had already been accused against serious offenses at the ICC and massive theft and corruption when he was the deputy president of Kenya. Due to the circumstances surrounding their elections and the dire need for validation and approval by citizens and the opposition leaders, has seen them indulge and overindulge in activities. First and foremost, they started by scrapping any subsidies that existed in the country in the promise that the money saved would be invested in the production sector to improve the public well-being. For example, President Tinubu, in his inauguration, picked a battle that many Nigerian leaders, military and civilian, in the past 30 years had fought and lost in one way or another. At his inauguration on 29 May, Mr. Tinubu announced the total removal of fuel subsidy, saying the scheme had increasingly favored the rich more than the poor. 2 months later, he claimed that scrapping petrol fuel subsidy had saved over 1 trillion naira, that is, $1.32 billion. However, the removal of fuel subsidy in Nigeria saw fuel prices increase to about 150% to 200% of the prices prior to the subsidy removal. Small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, have faced difficulties in accessing affordable power, which to a large extent has affected cost of doing business. However, it will likely stimulate investment in renewable energy by individuals and businesses, especially the introduction of electric vehicles, biofuels, or solar power technologies, and buses fueled using gas. To counter these challenges, President Tinubu introduced palliative programs and cash donations to the citizens of Nigeria. To cushion the citizens against increasing food prices, the president donated rice, which would amount to anything substantial, because a household would probably get half a cup of rice and 500 naira, which is equal to no help at all. The money that President Tinubu saved from petroleum subsidy saw him ascend to an interest-free student loan to promote access to higher education among the youth. This was really celebrated among Nigerians, as it would help reduce the struggle to raise fees for higher education among students, especially those from poor and vulnerable households. President Ruto too scrapped fuel and unga subsidies during his inauguration, claiming that they were unnecessarily expensive. Afterwards, inflation hit the country, and the shilling weakened against the dollar. He could neither account for the money that was saved from the fuel subsidy, neither show the production sector he had invested in. In fact, it was alleged by the opposition that the fertilizer he was implying he had subsidized he had received as a gift to farmers from Russia. This led to massive street protests to reduce the cost of living for Kenyans, which was accompanied by loss of lives and forced to silence the people that were protesting the unmanageable prices of food commodities. In President Tinubu's Nigeria, demonstrations have been ongoing, but we have not seen international news cover violence meted by police on people. Instead, labor union leaders met the president to negotiate some commitments to cushion the effects of the scrapped fuel subsidies. In Kenya, the labor union leader joined the president and has never organized any campaigns to support workers in asking the government to cushion them against increased prices. President Ruto has tried hard to provide loans to hustlers for as low as 500 Kenya shillings, which has been termed as insufficient effort to start business, an initiative that has been associated with high default rate. In Tinubu's Nigeria, and although finance bill is yet to pass through parliament, we have not yet seen a situation where members of parliament had to change their party affiliation to join the ruling party to favor policies. Had this been the case, and had the parliament and senate been under control of the executive, probably the Nigerian military would have been allowed to intervene the Niger coup. Kenyan parliament has been allegedly captured by the executive, which saw a finance bill pass without regard of comments raised during public participation. President Tinubu has never pursued Buhari for any vengeance, or even former President Obasanjo, who never supported his presidency at all. He has remained focused on solving the problems of the country, and although he may not be doing much at the moment to bring the hope that he had promised the citizens of Nigeria, he has tried to keep off tribal politics and former heads of state to avoid polarizing the country further. In Kenya, the case is different, from comments surrounding shareholding of power and the country resources in general, to profiling of certain communities in the country, especially those from Nyanza. We have seen a former head of state farm sheep carried shoulder high in broad daylight, and his farm razed with fire, to his son's home almost ransacked in the middle of the night by strangers, to his guards withdrawn, such a humiliation that caught the attention of the world. President Ruto failed to even apologize for the brutality meted unproportionately to a specific community during protests against high cost of living by police. He goes in the history of the world as the first president to warn a billionaire in public that he had only 3 choices to withdraw a case in court about sugar companies in Western Kenya, or pack to his country, or he would send him to heaven. That could only happen in Kenya, to be precise. I doubt President Tinubu would ever make such a low statement in public. His age would not allow him. Furthermore, President Tinubu has tried so hard to ensure all the appointments he has been making reflect a regional balance and also gender balance in his key picks. The case is totally different in the Kenyan situation. President Tinubu has kept off pulpits or even mosques, and he is no longer campaigning for his re-election in 2027. In Kenya, the situation is dire. Campaign is on the way as if election is going to be conducted next week. The political fatigue in Kenyans compared to Nigerians is visible and can be felt way beyond the country's borders. Just when you would think and expect that calmness and a focus beyond politics would emerge, the country remains very polarized with road shows to gaslight the hungry, desperate, and jobless youth. The tired citizens still appear to applaud the politicians as they also air frustrations and respond to each other in public. Politicians are just fighting for who eats more and whose turn it is to take more from the citizens without any form of accountability or transparency. The question here is, who really will save Kenya from toxic politics? The fatigue of listening to leaders exchange toxic words which don't reflect their status in the society seems endless. Given this analysis, President Tinubu may just be a better performer anyway.